I think a lot of people are capable of working and are willing to work, but it's just the way it's set up. It the mother and the children are better off if the husband isn't working or if the husband isn't there, and this breaks up so many poor families.
One of the saddest things is that many of the children whose parents are on welfare will in their turn end up in the welfare trap when they grow up. In this public housing project in the Bronx, New York, 3/4 of the families are now receiving welfare payments.
Well, Mr. Brown wanted to keep away from this kind of thing for a very good reason. The people who get on welfare lose their human independence and feeling of dignity. They become subject to the dictates and whims of their welfare supervisor, who can tell them whether they can live here or there, whether they may put in a telephone, what they may do with their lives. They're treated like children, not like responsible adults. And they're trapped in the system. Maybe a job comes up that looks better than welfare, but they're afraid to take it, because if they lose it after a few months, it may be 6 months or 9 months before they can get back onto welfare. And as a result, this becomes a self-perpetuating cycle, rather than simply a temporary state of affairs.
Now I will never be your hater, I'm your biggest fan. I hope it falls into place just how you planned it. Life could put you in a pickle, just make sure it's kosher. Lean on me like Bill Withers until you smell the roses. What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Subscribe or die trying. You see the thumbnail, more importantly, you saw that clip. You know, America is becoming a welfare state. So there's a few things I want to try to get off my chest properly. One is this was made in 78. Not too long after that, that was basically the crack era. So when people think about the welfare and men being out of the homes, that the men being out of the home so women could get welfare, that happened maybe 10, 15 years prior, but it ramped up in a sense. Because if you look at, what was that old movie, Claudine, it was the same thing. And I don't think that was set. I think that was set more in the late 60s, if I'm not mistaken, late 60s, early 70s, where the time period was supposed to be. But the issue is what? So right after this, you have the crack era. So all these men that you weren't hiring, because that's what we don't want to talk about, is they're talking as if people would companies hired black people or black men or even black women. They didn't hire us like that. So this sadistic little smirk this dude had is basically part of like a Willie Lynch letter of keeping people down. So that became an issue. Now, fast forward some years, what do you think they're doing to other groups now? Because see, basically all of this, let's just say immigrants, but I'm using Mexicans on this one in the sense of all of this under the table work, that all these immigrants are figuring out as they spend a little time here. It's like, oh, the only reason you hire me is because you can pay me peanuts. Oh, and mathematically, I should never be able to ever live in these areas that I work in because you pay me peanuts, because you keep the bulk of the money. Oh, okay. So then you get all these side hustles and criminality. See, the cartels never stop. They've been working with the government just as you can see. If the government even admitted working with them back in the day, I highly doubt that stopped. But what you're seeing is this idea of people going, okay, we can get on the system in America. And then you're seeing, the globalization of the quote unquote economy, where what are these companies doing? They're going to other countries, and in these other countries, they're paying these people peanuts and keeping them in poor areas, so they'll never make it out of where they're at. Just mathematically speaking, right? And in other countries, you can't really do the father's not in the home thing, but what you can do is keep them so poor that and working so long that they never see their parents. That's what you can do. Thus in Black America, you heard that thing where your mom was working 2, 3 jobs to make ends meet. Interesting, wasn't it? Now what you're seeing nowadays in a modern economy is people saying they have to work 2, 3 jobs to make ends meet, and people are on quote unquote welfare or assistance, as you call it, right? To keep afloat. And then you're seeing people saying people are being a drain on the system. And I'm thinking to myself, it's the same premise. Are you going to hire these people? The answer is no, you're not. So what you effectively do is you create a level of poverty that in your betting mind will never come to your doorstep because they're on a different side of the tracks than you. But like people need to think about it in the sense of where people used to interact with school. And as far as school, I mean travel, all the sports programs, all the science clubs, they used to travel from one area to the next and they start to see things a little differently. And then you start realizing, oh, okay, this is what's going on. And then you had the teachers back in the day who were trying to hold up racism and white supremacy by making sure the students weren't just not educated properly, but what they were really trying to do was break these kids mentally so they'll never be functional adults. That was part of the school indoctrination. So you had that whole dynamic, and the reason why I bring some of this stuff up is like they said, this is 1978. You didn't need all these degrees and stuff in 1978. So, if you just had the willingness to work, that pretty much covered it. And probably a high school diploma, that pretty much covered it. But not there. Not there. Not at that time. And that it was a lack of information to certain things, lack of information and access. So you didn't necessarily know where to go. People were going through phone books and newspaper articles, and it wasn't networking wasn't a thing, and it's not really a thing when you're poor, because everybody is poor for the most part. Not everybody, but the vast majority of people are poor, so they can't point you in the right direction. So looking at people starting to talk about UBI, universal basic income, which is basically government welfare, and the cost of living keeps going up, and companies are laying people off. Nobody's thinking about it, but what happens when these mothers start getting laid off? Because you're seeing that now. Right? Now you're seeing people like, we need to come together and be a family again type stuff. The question is what? Because teachers are quitting their jobs. Industries, are losing money because people can't afford to deal with them. We already talked about AI taking over and taking place of people's jobs from upper class to lower class. Just because you got those kiosks at the grocery store and Walmart and people losing their jobs, it doesn't mean that these people at these big corporations that was crunching numbers, making money on Wall Street, is not losing their jobs too, because they're like, shit, I could put an app in for that. Forget all that. So now, what do you have? You have a country on the verge of welfare and criminality. And when you're seeing these other people coming from other places, and now they're basically coming out of the gate getting welfare. How long do you think it's going to take them to feel entitled? To feel like this is what they're supposed to get and keep getting? Because what happens when you cut the payments off? Oh, you finna see what happens, right? So You got to get ready for America to be in a welfare state, and it's going to change your thoughts on what this country is. But that's just my observation and what I think about it at this point. But tell me what you think. Like, share, subscribe, or die trying. Catch y'all on the next one. Peace. You ever been at the top of the universe? I'm gonna tell you that.